Welcome back to season 2 of Infinite Love. My name is Kate, and today I have a special guest, my cousin Jackie.
Hello there. I'm honored to be here.
So I wanted to start the season off differently, and I went ahead and reached out to my fellow TikTokers and asked if they had any personal questions they would like to ask me, just to get to know me a little bit more on a deeper level. So I wrangled up my cousin and had her come in to interview me with these questions. How do you feel about that?
I love it. I'm super excited. There's some great questions.
I'm excited too, and a little nervous. So let's just tear off that Band-Aid, and I will let you go ahead and ask away.
Get into it. Okay. The first question is from Vicky. She looks like she has a few questions for you. I guess.
Oh, good.
The first one is, how old are you?
I am 43 years old.
You are still such a young kid at heart.
Totally.
Next question from Vicky is, what is one of your biggest achievements? That's a great question.
Wow. I could kind of break this up into a couple different segments of my life. I would say one of my greatest achievements in my teenage years was my involvement with my mom's youth ministry and serving all those who had been affected by a natural disaster. So I did that for at least 18 years. And I would say as I got older, another achievement was going back to school, as I was never really good in school, according to my grades and behavior. But going back and getting not one but 2 master's degrees and doing it for myself and not for anyone else, I was really, really proud of myself for doing this.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Now, I'm going to add in, I'm going to ask a couple of things. Where were some of the places that you helped with the youth ministry? Obviously, I know these things, but I think it's pretty cool for your listeners to know just how you helped out with that.
Well, we started in Harlan, Kentucky, and at the time I was 15 years old, and that was actually the start of my mom's youth ministry program. So I was a guinea pig, I would say, and then I dragged all my friends with me, which they obviously did not follow suit. They were one and done.
It's a lot of work. I don't blame them.
Right? I don't blame them either. But I loved it. I loved what we did. Harlan, Kentucky at the time was one of the poorest counties in the U.S. So helping others has always been a part of my life. It's who I am to this day, is someone who enjoys and loves naturally helping others. There are so many to even try to mention, but the few that come to my head are Hurricane Katrina. We were in Mississippi, Joplin, Missouri for the tornado relief. We were even in, or at least my last mission trip was in Puerto Rico for the hurricane recovery. But there are, I wish I could sit here and name all of them, but they each had such an effect or impact on me. And it was more so not what I was doing, but the fact that I could pause my life, put that on hold, that on silence, walk away from the partying and all the fun stuff, the things that kind of get in the way of our everyday lives.
Kind of a reset for you.
Yeah, it was.
Great.
And to hold gratitude and appreciate the things I do have, because I have to see what others have lost.
I'm sure.
And not just objects, but like people. We dealt with a lot of families that lost somebody or lost friends or lost neighbors, and they would share these stories, and you would just be so humbled and grateful for the fact that you still have those things. So take the time to appreciate it. And what made it even more beautiful was the fact that when I was on these mission trips, I was always with my mom and dad, because obviously my mom ran the program, but my dad was kind of forced into it like I was when my mom first began her program. But we've all said this, is it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing to be able to provide and give and donate and utilize our time in any way, shape, form. And then to watch the youth who are involved and watch their faces light up when they hear the stories and realize their appreciation for life and their love for it. I mean, a lot of these kids kept coming back until their young adult years, and then I got to work with them as young adults. So it was
life-changing, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Lifelong friendships.
Definitely. And lifelong memories of gratitude.
All right, the last question from Vicky. This is another great one. When you think of home, what is the first thought that crosses your mind? That's deep. I love it.
It is. And so do I. Most people think of home as where they live and who they live with. But for me, home is where my soul is most happy. And
home could be anywhere.
Anywhere. It's a state of mind. Right now, my soul is just beyond happy being here doing this. And not just because I'm in my home doing it, but it's just that I feel this sense of happiness, positivity,
peace,
and balance. Yes.
Even just walking in here, I can feel that.
Oh, good.
And I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of me too.
All right. Next question we have from Antoinette. She had said, "You have inspired so many. Who has inspired you along your healing journey?" Another great one.
I know, another deep one. All right. Well, no time to think, so I'm just gonna roll it right off my soul. It's not just one person, but life in general. The pandemic.
That was life-changing.
For everyone.
Yes.
And I had this realization of, I live in this house alone. My parents are down the street, but obviously being older, I couldn't go over there. Well, I'm an affectionate person. Mm-hmm. I love being around people, doing whatever. It doesn't matter. And to not have any of that and to sit in all of that was difficult because, as I mentioned in my first season, a lot of it is those conditioned thoughts, that negative, toxic way of thinking. Well, all of that was loud, very, very loud. And you can only watch so much Netflix and documentaries and
Tiger King and
right? And it doesn't go away. Nor does the drinking help and the Zooming, because at the end of the night, it's still reminding me that I was alone. Right. But not in the sense of like, oh my God, poor me, I'm alone. It was, I'm alone in my thoughts. And how do I express that to anyone? Mm-hmm. It's terrifying.
So in a way, you inspired yourself.
In a way, but I can't take all the credit. I had reunited with an old dear friend of mine, and she kind of got me more awoke in a way spiritually, as well as triggered some of the things that I never knew were really there or existed. So that was another motivation factor. Even going on TikTok, there were a lot of people that inspired me because they created this joy and positivity out of this negative environment that we were all living in. And even when I would come across TikToks, I remember of other countries, everyone hanging out on their balconies, singing,
yes,
playing instruments. It was just so beautifully positive.
Chills. Yeah.
And to me, it's like, that's the joy I need in my life. And so then I just realized that I needed to do the work. I really, truly needed to sit within and figure this all out because none of it was working for me for the last, do I admit how old I was? I had just turned 40 for the pandemic. Yeah. So I lost my 40th
Oh yeah,
birthday.
40 was rough.
I was supposed to be in Iceland.
Yes. But you did make it. You did make it.
Yes, and I said that in my podcast, the first season, that I was meant to go when I went because I know I was more appreciative of that trip.
Right.
Of being given such a gift.
Right, because you were in a different...
worthy of receiving. Right. Whereas before, I probably would have just sat there doubting and shaming myself. Who gives a gift like this? Mm-hmm. And why me?
Right, yeah.
And I was present in the moments. And Iceland is definitely a place you want to be present in the moments. It is such a beautiful country.
Yes. All right. Lynn Jim Girl asked, how long did it take to heal and love yourself?
Well, healing doesn't end. And once I realized that and said, okay, I understand it, I get it, I loved it more, or I appreciated it more, or I even looked forward to the lessons. I know that sounds weird because who loves the dark days? But we're all here and we all live with light and dark within us. It's what we choose to do with it, whether we mask it, run from it, or we tackle it.
Right.
and we learn from it, and we know that we can pick ourselves off the ground after having a bad day and getting back up and saying, okay, today is my day. Nothing's going to stop me. So the
It's a
healing is
continuous-
never,
Yeah, it's
the
continuous.
healing never ends.
And it's never linear. It's, yeah.
never linear. And what was the other question though?
She just asked, how long did it take for you to heal and love yourself?
The loving myself took 40 plus years. It wasn't until I have to count on my fingers how old I am now, 43. I didn't necessarily love myself in the beginning of the healing journey. So let's say I began at 40 doing this healing journey. Even though I was honestly doing it periodically throughout my life, I wasn't staying consistent with it. I thought, one and done, I'm healed.
Right.
Put the Band-Aid on, rip the Band-Aid off, I'm good. No, that's not how that works. So I would say closer to 42 is when I really truly started looking in the mirror and loving everything. Not just my body, not just my scars, but everything about me, my heart, my soul, my mind, my body, my energy. I loved it and appreciated it. I loved my flaws. And that was a hard one, was loving my flaws.
Right.
Because in my mind, I wanted to fix them all. But
Right.
again,
It takes time to embrace that.
it really does. And it's like once you let go of all those attachments of needing and wanting to fix everything or other people, you realize just be,
Right.
learn from it, and grow from it.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Well, thank you.
All right, next question. Adriana asked, have you ever confronted a childhood bully? If so, how did it go? Ooh,
Ugh.
I know I've confronted some bullies on your behalf, but I'll
Yes,
let you
and I'm
answer
going to
that.
have you share that too. Have I ever confronted a childhood bully? As a child, no. I had other people do this for me.
You had your army. We were your army.
Yeah, but honestly, I didn't have to deal with that so much within my community of my neighborhood. I had one kid that moved in, and obviously being in third grade, he wanted to fit in and he was kind of the class clown, but we were outside playing dodgeball at recess and I went to go grab the ball. Now I was very tomboyish. Like I loved getting rough and tough. So I was running after that ball. And so was he. And so we were face to face. And then he, I startled him. My looks startled him. And he had not met me yet because there was 3 different classrooms in third grade. So he had quite a bit of comments to make. I remember one of my guy friends saying, no, she's cool. She's one of our friends. She's with us.
Yeah.
And shut that down. And he was like, okay. But that was it.
And that's kind of the end of it, yeah. But that stuck with you.
Oh, yeah. Because it was the first time I ever felt that ouch moment.
Right.
That sucker punch of, ugh.
Yeah. You were always protected.
I
yeah.
looked different because I never really looked at myself as different.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I had surgeries, but I didn't feel different because all of my community never allowed me to feel
Right.
different than them.
Right. We just know you as Kate. That was
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
But in the community outside of our community, so basically in public, I had more so adults or teenagers who were much older and clearly immature make the comments and the snickers, and I just kind of carried along. I never said anything, but I know at times, for instance, my mom, we were in Sport Mart. When Sport Mart is.
You're aging yourself.
I am totally aging myself. And there was a kid staring and staring and staring, and I think my mom had just had enough. Then again, she could have had enough because she dragged all 3 of her young kids
Sure.
to Sport Mart, and God help her soul. We were not very, what would be the word? Calm?
Wild.
Yeah.
We were wild.
We were. And if you put all of us together, oh God. Nobody ever wanted to babysit us.
No.
So she had finally, you could tell she was at that boiling point. So I had to, walk over to her and kind of hold her hand and say, don't do it.
You stopped her?
I did.
Wow.
But that hurt me in a weird way because that's when I started realizing I'm feeling other people's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Because I getting choked up. Because it hurt me to see my mom hurt.
Sure.
Because I wasn't hurt. I was annoyed maybe, but I could easily carry on and go on as a child and do my, rambunctious little things I would do in any store. But to see that my mom was frustrated and hurt caused me anxiety. Probably one of the first times I ever felt any type of emotion like that.
Right, because I think you're probably processing, you knew the boy was staring at you, and then now you're processing, feeding off your mom's anxieties, which...
Yeah, it's like you don't want to see them react, and yet you want to react, but you don't want to react.
Sure.
So my only way was to respond quietly, which I did for a very long time. I was really good at responding versus reacting. And it wasn't until I was older that I began reacting and not responding.
Right. I remember a few times, there were a couple times where, maybe even you didn't notice, but we would be out or something, and I would catch people staring, and that would bring out the not so nice side of me. But,
so let me ask you this, because I don't remember a lot of those. I'm sure if you share the story, I probably, trigger something, but did you react? Did you say anything?
Yes. I would do something like, a look or,
the look of death.
Or I know with my brother, we were in San Diego visiting and we were walking down the street. I don't know if you remember this. And
was I drinking?
Could have been. And we were walking by and it was a group of men, young men. And they kind of stopped and my brother Terry had crossed the street and actually confronted them. And I think we always kind of protected you from that, but in a way it was...
because I don't remember that at all. Or at least you played it off very well.
Yeah.
I think the hard part for me is feeling other people's responses, having to feel what people are going through, whether they respond or react. It's even heavier and weighted on me because being an empath and all, I feel everything but 100 times worse. And there's nothing I can really do to ground myself right there in the moment because I'm so overly sensitive too. So that was an adjustment then I didn't know, but now learning the tools to balance myself out.
And I think too, now that we're older and sort of on this healing journey together, we've learned, I know for myself, I don't react. I've learned too that, people's actions are just a reflection of them.
Yeah, it's their journey, their story. And being out now, I don't even honestly recognize it or feel it as much. And there may be times when I'm sensitive.
Sure.
But I still don't process it the way I used to or handle it the way I used to. Now I just kind of self-reflect and remind myself on days where I'm having bad days that it's not mine. It's not my story. It's not my journey. And I can only hold a special place of like love and space for them.
Right.
Because they must have a journey of their own. And for me, I just choose to stay focused on me.
Amen to that.
Amen.
All right. Do you want to get into the next question?
Yes, let's do it.
Zane Baker asked, and I loved this one, how do you stay so upbeat in a very not upbeat world? He goes on to say, your voice is so needed in this world. And I couldn't agree more. How many times do I say that to you? You're changing the world.
Every day. And thank you for those reminders every day. How do I stay upbeat? Well, I'll be honest. I'm not always upbeat. And you know that.
Yeah.
Jackie's been my sidekick during this self-healing journey, as I've shared with her. Not just the self-healing, but it's also become a spiritual journey of everything too. And there's a lot to unpack and unfold and learn and go through all these different lessons. So the upbeat part, since I was a kid, I've always been upbeat. So that's kind of a natural energy that comes out of me.
Yes.
Like a wild boar.
Yes. You are the light. You've always been the life of the party.
And I've shared that though in my episodes. It's like, but I never felt like the life of the party. Mm-hmm. If anything, it was polar opposite of what I was feeling on the inside.
It's a different livelihood. I think I see now.
Yeah. Definitely. I feel if anything, I'm allowing my inner child to come out more freely and I'm loving everything about me. So I'm living everything about me. I'm allowing myself to be free to just live.
Right.
Even though practically majority of my time is hermit mode. And
same. Yeah. It's me too.
But how do I stay upbeat? I choose positivity because there is so much more joy and fun and energy in positivity than there is negativity. Mm-hmm. I understand and see the difference when I focus on negative things or I'm around negative people or toxic situations, that it literally transforms you. It brings you down several steps.
Yes.
And if anything, I hate going backwards in life. I rather go forwards or be still in the moment. So I choose positivity. And if that means I have to shut off the world sometimes, I'll do it. If people say I'm selfish, that's theirs.
Right.
I choose me and my happiness. And if that means that I get to be free and love myself entirely, well, then I know I'm doing the right thing for myself.
I love that. Yeah. And I think too with me, just, for me, you are so upbeat. I mean, how many times have I called or texted when I'm in a slump? And then it's kind of, when you surround yourself with people like that, you kind of eventually sort of feed off of each other, that upbeat, positive energy. And you kind of learn to, I'm obviously still learning, but kind of put a wall up and, that negative, because it is hard.
It truly, I mean, removing yourself from the things that you once were attached to or loved or, knew, like since childhood, it's a different lifestyle and sometimes very uncomfortable, lonely. I mean,
Absolutely.
That's definitely the big one, is the loneliness. But once you start getting past that and realizing that you can do so much for yourself that you've never allowed yourself to do, you realize how attached you were to things that you didn't need to be attached to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, is finding that joy and reigniting that joy in such a different way. I mean, as kids, I think I've always said, I'm like, all right, we need to do an inner child activity today. It's like when it rains and you just decide to dart out in the street
Love
at
it.
43 years old and you're the crazy lady dancing in the rain, but you're alive,
Yes.
and that energy and that vibration that runs through you, I can live in that for the rest of my life. And I feel like I am majority of the time. Like I said, not perfect. I am human. We have human days. And even on those days, I have that tendency to, get down on myself. And then I have to remind myself, or I reach out to Jackie
Right.
and say, hey, kind of need a, slap in the face, a reminder, give me an idea or tell me what's up.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just a conscious decision, I think, just to stay upbeat. Sometimes it comes naturally.
Yeah.
So, all right. You ready for the next one?
I think I am.
These are good.
I know, they really are. I love it.
All right. Cece shared, sitting here thinking about winter, which will be here before we know it.
Shh. We were talking about positivity. Focus on the now, not the future.
I'm wondering how you get through the dreary weather and stay grounded and upbeat. And I love this because this kind of feeds off the whole COVID feeling secluded type thing.
Well, this is a great question. And I know for a fact I had seasonal affective disorder, SAD. I hated it. I would become anxious come October. The minute it started getting darker sooner, my body would just react.
Yes.
And because of COVID, once we were able to be out free, as they say at work, they're like, oh God, who freed the goot?
Yeah.
Because I got to run rampant. I always got to be moving or talking. So I would know instinctively, like, okay, it's time.
It's coming. Yeah.
But ever since the pandemic and then started doing the healing work, I don't have a fear of the winter. I mean, there's those days where you're just like, oh, I'm stuck in the house. Well, yeah, because there's 12 feet of snow outside. I mean, I'm not shoveling it. So
Yeah, we live in the Midwest.
So, I mean, I created my own problem by not shoveling myself out. But it does not affect me as much. But the key is finding that joy within. So kind of creating a plan for yourself. Well, one, I always suggest going within and doing that inner work. It's so helpful in so many different ways because I've learned different tools now to handle different situations of my life that used to trigger me relentlessly. And I mentioned earlier that I was triggered this morning, but I knew right away how to ground myself and how to get back to a solid foundation and identify the fact that I knew I was really tired. We had a bad storm last night. I barely slept, and I partly was probably excited about today's podcast.
Can't sleep.
I'm like a little kid. Santa's coming.
Kid. Yes. I'm glad. I'm Santa.
I'm the little elf. So finding those key things, those tools that help you. And for me, it's finding those passions. I never knew I was creative, not like this. And the fact that I can even be proud to say I'm creative.
I'm impressed.
I know.
How about it when I
'cause
came in here and saw
I
yours?
don't give myself acknowledgement. I used to never do that. I used to never acknowledge anything I was good at because I slightly didn't feel I was good at those things. I was okay. That's how I described a lot of things. I'm okay with this, or I'm okay at that. No, I was good at all those things, but I didn't know I had creativity like this in me. So finding those things, I know when I came across a couple different, not podcasts, but TikToks that people were sharing their newfound joys and passions. And I know pandemic kind of opened everyone's eyes to that. So my suggestion is honestly finding those things that you love.
Right.
And trying new things that you don't even know you might like.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I do that with food a lot.
Well, that's even something as simple as spoiling yourself. Like you always tell me, self-care is so important.
Take that bath, order that
Comfort food, yes.
Or even that little fancy expensive meal one time. Do something outrageous for yourself. And then you start learning more about yourself. Another big thing is if it scares you, I say go for it. Because that's how I've learned a lot of new things about myself is from the things that terrified me. And meditation helps. Yoga helps. Those are the things I do during the winter when I can't do anything. And I get outside. I don't care how cold it is.
Right.
I make sure I'm outside at least for a few minutes every single day. Getting fresh air, moving my body. I think that's probably the hardest thing during winter is you can't go to the woods and go hiking.
That's what I was going to say.
And the trees are bare.
Yeah.
I'll still hug them, but they're a little cold.
Yeah.
But it's just not the same. So that's probably where I get most sad now is the fact that like I miss my trees, I miss nature, I miss the animals coming around. So
Right. But there's a lot of healing in solitude.
God,
kind of
yeah.
taking that
Yeah.
time to reset.
And always find a good movie
Yes.
or documentaries. And sometimes silence or music. I love to dance around my house. I've done this since I was
are
a
the
kid.
queen
I'll
of dancing.
do it to the day I die. I might break a hip while I do it when I get older, but
Nobody's got moves like that.
that'll be a different episode and a different season of my podcast.
To showcase those moves. All right, that was a good one. Dina asked, "How do you handle the tough days of your healing journey?"
Well, that kind of coincides with what I just said, but the tough days, I acknowledge them. I tell myself, okay, this is what you're doing. This is what you're feeling. And this is just how the day is going to be. It will turn around. You just don't know when. So stop forcing it. Stop forcing yourself to just be happy. You're not. So I'll cry it out. I do a lot of what I call spiritual showers, a spiritual bath, which basically means I'm either in the bath and I light all the candles, turn off all the lights, and listen to meditative music or a silence.
Right.
And I'll do the same thing in the shower. And then if I'm having a really bad day, I'll just sit down and I'll cry it out.
Yeah.
I'll scream it out sometimes if I'm really frustrated. And I'll kind of imagine that all these feelings, all this darkness is going down the drain. And the water is replenishing me. It's giving me my life back. It's giving me my energy back. It's my rejuvenation. Or I journal. I tend to write a lot, whether it's on my computer or handwritten. And sometimes I just lay in bed or lay on the couch and cry. And the key to that, though, for me is, and I learned this from a friend whom I met on TikTok through spirituality, and she said, set a timer. Set a timer for 30 minutes and say, cry it out for 30 minutes, but when that timer goes off, get back up. You're done.
I love that.
And if you have to come back to it later, that's fine, but set a timer for less time. And I tried it. It definitely was like, I focused more on getting mad at the timer going off. I was like, I'm not ready.
Yeah, right.
And then I kind of found myself laughing at myself because I was yelling at the timer going off. And then I forgot even why I was upset in the first place.
I like that. It's kind of like, putting yourself in timeout.
Yeah. Adult timeout.
Yes. All right. Next question. Is it Bricklap asked, how do you inventory internal worthiness? Wow.
How do I inventory internal worthiness? Well, at 40, I didn't realize I lacked self-love and self-worth. So I didn't have that. I had pieces and parts, but I spent majority of my time putting that all on other people because it was easier. Because it still allowed me to feel that worth and that love, but in the wrong way. So now I make sure I tell myself affirmations daily. I go through every morning, I self-reflect and I start off with gratitude. Thank you for allowing me to wake up. Thank you for an amazing day. Thank you for the sun coming through. Thank you, even though it's 5 a.m. and I didn't want to be awake, but the birds are chirping, but thank you for that, you know? And I'm truly grateful for it. Did I always say this? No, I didn't say it when I wasn't aligned to it. And that was key for me is I can't be inauthentic. I can't force myself to fake it till I make it. It's just not, it doesn't work for me. And especially now doing all of this self-healing, I really can't do things that I don't align to.
Right.
It does something to me. It does something to my mind, my body, my heart, my soul. And I almost feel like I'm asking for karma to come back to me.
Yeah.
Like I can feel the karma coming my way if I'm inauthentic in any way, shape, or form. And that's when I self-reflect and say, okay, that's my lesson.
Right.
Even the sheer thoughts of saying something that's out of my element, out of my norm, at least for now, I'll self-reflect and go through the lesson and say, well, I needed that. I needed that trigger. I needed that lesson to realign myself, to reground myself, rebalance myself. So my worthiness now is I know my worth, I see my worth, I feel my worth. And I don't allow anyone to take from that. And I don't apologize, which is a huge step for me is I would always be the first to say sorry. Sorry. You know, I wanted to fix everything because I didn't want that energy. You won't hear me say sorry unless I am sorry. And I will be the first to admit I take accountability. And in fact, one of my friends texted me this morning and as I read her message, and it wasn't even anything particular, but I later on figured out because I was lack of sleep, hungry, tired, just exhausted, and very highly sensitive, just a very sensitive morning, that I was triggered by her message. So I immediately wrote, I want to take accountability. I am triggered by your message. I will respond later.
Yeah.
You know, it's just because I knew I didn't want to react, but it wasn't, and I told her, I was like, it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with this message. I clearly have to sit with this because something triggered me. And it's meant to. It's the minute you start identifying your triggers and you acknowledge them and you take accountability for them, things start changing. My life didn't start changing until I started taking accountability for all the action or inaction I didn't take in my life.
All right. Kayla Rainey shared, how do you handle bullies at your age? Zeman, and I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Zeman is 15. And I'm scared to death because the adults were the ones making comments, not the kids as he grew up. That's awful.
Right?
And
kind of hits you.
Yeah.
Like you said in San Diego, adult men, young adult men. And that's probably the worst part for me ever in my life has been men over women, grown men, drunk men at a bar. Worst places to be, really. Adults are harder. I understand her emotions because it's one, I applaud the fact that he grew up with a good community where he wasn't teased or made fun of, which was almost my same experience. So that's amazing. As a mom, I can only imagine how your heart breaks. My mom, same way, but she kept putting me out there. Don't allow fear to get the best of you because it will impact him too, unfortunately. I always say negative energies attract negative energies. And sometimes we have no control of what people are going to say or do or think, just like adults. All you can do and strive for is to build and surround him with love. Don't force it. Don't overexert yourself and say, you know, you're strong, you're this, you're this. Just naturally love him like you do, and you can tell you love him. And you can't always protect someone in those situations, but don't react. If anything, don't react. Respond, but have a conversation with them.
Right.
Have a conversation. Say, can I respond to this? Or would this make you feel uncomfortable? Or how does this make you feel? Because also ignoring doesn't help either.
Right.
Especially, I know for me, I noticed a lot of things that did take place at 15 that people would ignore, my friends would ignore. And I understood that they didn't know how to react, or they didn't know what to say, or it made them so uncomfortable, which then made me feel uncomfortable. But it's acknowledging the conversation of like, oh, that was rude. But it gets better. I mean, for me, I don't notice it anymore. So even if it were to happen, I know I'll respond with a more loving manner or understanding manner. How about that?
I think too that the reacting that way almost humbles the person that's doing it, as opposed to you going and attacking or reacting negatively.
Yeah.
You know, you show them compassion and kindness, I think.
Yeah.
You know, that's almost
and if they
teaching them a lesson.
continue
Well, yeah. that's
after,
true.
then that just tells you exactly who they are and where they're at in their journey. And you feel bad
Yeah.
in a sense, because it's, in my mind, it's like, oh man,
Anger.
yeah, there, like so much trauma that you're probably going through there, or you're not even seeing exists. Because again, we all have our stories, we all have our journeys, and if we continue to mask them or hide behind our addictions or anything and avoid dealing with what it is we need to deal with, they're always going to be there.
Right.
They're just going to show up in different ways, different formats every single time until we're ready to deal with it.
Right.
Or we just continue living our life in that type of karmic lesson. And for me, I did, like I said, I won't go backwards. And I just...
Yeah. And I think too, like you had said with the, myself being a mom, I always respect my kids. If they are, battling something, bullying or anything like that, I always ask, it's important to ask, do you want me to react or do you want me to step back? And I loved hearing you say that because that's kind of how I approach it.
Which is great. I mean, you're giving your child
the power
a
back.
voice.
Yeah.
Yes. And allowing them to have a voice. And I didn't necessarily always have a voice. And I did allow other people to be my voice. Mm-hmm. I didn't speak up for myself. I got so used to it that it took my voice away, And that's on me because I waited till, 40 years later to fix this. Or to work on, I shouldn't say fix, to work on, the healing process, to see my worth, to see my love for myself. And all you can do is love.
Yeah.
You can never go wrong with love and listening and kindness.
Yeah. And all of our love to that little guy, poor guy. It's unfortunate, but it sounds like he'll be all right with his mom. And
totally. I think
yes,
you're already on the right track. I would just say,
keep doing what you're doing.
keep doing what you're doing, but don't let that fear stay with you. Let it go. Trust that your child is going to be okay. Trust that your child is going to have a strong voice. Trust that your child is going to make moves in this world.
Right.
And let the rest be upon the other people.
Mm-hmm. All right. Regina asked, what was the greatest thing you are glad you did? It's kind of like the first.
Do I have to pick one? The greatest thing I've ever done.
I know one. I could think of
Oh
recently.
God! Let me hear it.
Traveling across
yes.
the whole the globe by yourself.
Okay, yes, I have a million on my head right now. Traveling, yes. Mm-hmm. Going solo across country,
across the world, internationally.
Internationally. Greatest adventure that I could ever give myself. The next, I would say, skydiving. Mm-hmm. I'm an adrenaline junkie, but I love seeing. It's not just about jumping out of a plane. I have a fear of heights, and part of me thought that would cure it. It doesn't. But I love seeing the world from different views. And that was, what better way to see on top of the world or feel on top of the world than jumping out of an airplane. Doing this podcast.
Yeah.
I never thought I would do something like this. And I do find it a lot easier talking with somebody. So thank you for being here because
I'll come back anytime.
I've shared many times with her that talking to myself sometimes is just ridiculous. I do this majority of the time silently in my head all day as I self-reflect and meditate, but doing it out loud, whole different story.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing half of the time, but it's okay. But doing the podcast, doing TikTok, being creative. All the stuff I just never imagined.
Right.
I know. I mean, I can keep going.
That'll be the next podcast.
Right. Season 3.
All right. Because is it Kazakina wants to know, has TikTok helped you on this journey? I already know the answer to that one.
Yes.
That kind of catapulted everything, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. The friend I mentioned earlier who kind of awoke me in this process was the one who inspired me to go on TikTok and do my first ever TikTok. And I was nervous. But the cool thing about TikTok is if you go back to my first ever post to now, I could see my growth. So to me, it's like my own personal diary.
Yeah.
That I'll have forever until, someone bans it. But I'll have those memories forever. Yeah. And I feel like I've come a long way.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, social media, a lot of, and I know it gets a bad rap and it can be used for things like that. But I know with like what you're doing, it's such a positive impact,
Yeah, I never imagined being in a place where such beautiful aligned support and love.
Yes.
And my goal, you know, in the beginning, you're like, ooh, viral. I don't even care about any of that. You know, me and my 2,000 plus followers.
That's impressive. Yes.
I love it.
It's a little community.
It is. You know, and I love supporting them. And the thing about TikTok is not just receiving all that beautiful love and support, it's being able to provide it too. I love the conversations that carry on. I love that people will DM me their personal stories.
Right.
And say, I've never shared this with anyone. And I'm sitting there like, well, okay, thank you. I mean, thank you for sharing and being vulnerable. I appreciate that.
I love that. I didn't know that you get a lot of...
I know. Some things I just kind of
that's
keep private. But it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's just like my mouth wide open, like tears flowing out of my eyes. You know, I'm a blubbering whale of tears. And I mean...
It is such a... I know too, with TikTok, it is such a... I mean, it's almost like, you know, it can either bring you laughs or it's just such a great community. It really is.
It really is.
You know,
I mean, if you're on the right side of TikTok.
Exactly. Well, you know, mostly funny cat videos and stuff like that. That's my For You page. But,
right? I mean, you can never go wrong with animals and the craziness. But I love laughter. I love positivity. You know, I'm not all about like just everything's going to be motivational. You know, I have a whole group of my soul fam on there, Spirit Tribe, I call them. I love the people that are like creative and who were inspired to go ahead and start their own. Like they were in behind the scenes, it's just liking people, and liking my stuff. And then they're like, you inspired me to start making videos. I'm like, go for it, do it. You know, it's like, do your journey, do you for you, as long as you're doing it for yourself.
Exactly.
You know, keep going and never give up, and don't become attached to any notion. And that's where I think the biggest growth for me is like letting go of all that attachment. I don't have any attachment to the likes, the views, the followers. I do it because I enjoy it.
You're doing it for the right reasons.
I love it, and I love connecting. And I'm always so grateful, and I tell the universe every day, like, thank you for the alignment with the right people on TikTok.
Yeah, I know that they've become, like you said, your soul family.
Well, and when I did my first post, honestly, was one of my biggest fears was the comments.
You don't get a whole lot of...
I think I've only gotten 2.
Who are they?
I don't know.
I'm just kidding.
Where are they from? What's their IP address?
Exactly.
Yeah, I've only gotten 2.
That's
and
amazing.
it's one of those things, you know, I was sensitive in the beginning, but honestly, it shows you where I was in the beginning of my journey. So you want to react. You're like, ooh,
right.
I want to say something. I'm like, you know what?
That block button's there for a reason.
Yeah, delete, block, send. You know, like don't even respond.
Yeah.
And
that's great. It shows you that, you know, the people that are following you are there for all the right reasons.
Well, and those 2 people that never made any like snide comment were in the beginning of my journey. So when I say energy attracts energy, you can see that I was still in negative energy. So I was attracting that to me. And the self-doubt, the shame, those were all still going on in the beginning of doing this journey. So now you see the love, like the support, the positivity, the growth, and not just me, but within everyone I'm connected to on that platform. So it's that energy, the high vibing energy is now bringing in that same energy. But I will say there is a downside. So, but I take this as a little note, a side note that I pocket is if I'm going through my feed on TikTok, you know, when they, you know, TikTok loves to change their algorithms, but when they do this little changeover and I notice that I'm not seeing what I normally would see, positivity or funny or blah, 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 it's almost, everything seems dark.
Oh,
and you can tell when things start going on in the US or in the world, and the media wants you to feed off that darkness.
Yes.
Well, they're going to throw that in your feed. So I am now more in tune to that, where I literally will shut off my TikTok for the day. And as much as sometimes I'm like, but I want to be on it. Like, I'm just sitting there.
Right.
No, you're going to detach, because don't allow it to become an attachment. And I'll detach from it. And there are times where you have to detach from social media.
Oh, yeah.
In general.
Take your breaks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, podcast, social media, when I did the vacation, it was like I wanted to really focus on that trip, on myself, because I knew that I was going to go through some turbulent moments because my first international trip, I knew it wasn't going to be
Very
perfect.
stressful. Yes.
But it was amazing because I allowed myself to then utilize those tools and not be on my phone or be carried away with making sure I did TikToks and making sure I was doing a podcast. It was like, okay, you're going to pause everything. And even when I came back, I was still kind of on a
little hiatus.
of TikTok. Yeah, I was just kind of sporadically, and I still am. But I'm enjoying my summer. As a teacher, I really am taking that time for myself. Because it's hard, because then once work comes, then doing the podcast, doing the TikToks, and doing my, doing everyday life becomes
Yeah.
a little stressful.
Yeah. Everybody needs that pause. I think
Yeah.
that's important
yeah.
too.
We just need one big red pause button to remind us, or hit us in the face. Like, take a pause.
Amen. All right. Last question, I think.
What? We're on the last
Yeah,
one?
This is a good one. 'Cause
Okay.
I actually wonder this myself. Nancy has an important question of, are you still in touch with any of your childhood doctors or nurses or teachers?
Oh, that is a great question. I stopped having surgeries at 21, 22. And then I ended up having to have emergency surgery where I ran into a former doctor whom I didn't like at the time, but he tried to jump in and get on the surgery with this other doctor. And I said, no, I said, I won't even have the surgery if you allow this. Cause at the time I really did not like him. I didn't like his arrogance, his ego, his lack of humor, or his approach. He talked to me like I was a child, which I understood because he worked for a children's hospital, but I was a grown ass woman at the time. So no.
Yeah.
And the doctor just didn't like that. But I also was approached by a very egotistical doctor who had to perform the surgery to remove some of the fluid. I was building spinal fluid in my skull and it was detrimental. So they had to remove a piece of my skull to allow
I
free
remember
flow.
that. Yeah.
But this doctor just happened. I mean, what are the odds? He happened to run into this other doctor and wanted to join in. And this isn't even his field.
Really?
Yeah, he does plastic surgery, reconstructive. It has nothing to do with brain surgery. But he wanted to be a part of it. I was like, right there's your red flag.
Right.
No. But anyways, I kind of sidetracked. But that's the last time I've actually seen
A former doctor.
former doctor. My doctor who saved my life, I haven't seen since I was 17, 16. Yeah. And there's a nurse. I did a TikTok a year and a half ago looking for this woman, Nancy. She was the nurse that saved me, who went to mom and dad and basically said, ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
So she was my guardian angel, my hero. She is from Michigan.
So you did get in contact with her?
No,
Oh.
I reached out to this art studio. It's the last place I found her name in I researched, but nothing. They got back to me and then never got back to me again.
Oh. Well, that's funny because the person that asked the question is Nancy. So maybe that's universe sign to
To start looking for
keep
Nancy.
looking. Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that. Maybe that'll be on my mission because it really wasn't. It would mean the world to me if I could find this lady. She's in her early 80s by now. We haven't seen her since we were, I think, 6 or 7. We flew to Florida to visit her. She had lost her job because she had spoke up, and that was something you didn't do in 1982. Nor do you, I'm sure that a lot of people get fired if they speak up against doctors. But that stigma has to end, which is why I love more so my nurses.
I was going to
than
say
my
that. We love our
doctors.
nurses.
Except for the man that saved me. Nurses are amazing. So if you're a nurse and you're listening, you're beautiful.
Yeah.
But where was I? What were we talking about? Though?
So you flew out to
Oh
California.
yeah, no, flew out to Florida.
Or Florida.
And we, as a family, we went and visited her. And I still remember this because her backyard had like this pond-ish thing, but there were alligators that lived there. And I just remember that. I was like, ooh.
The thrill seeker in you. Go swim
Yeah,
with some
as we're
gators.
going fishing, like, oh, we're just going to take some bait and, lure it in, I would have been a little cat litter to this thing.
So she had lost her job here in Illinois.
Yeah.
Did she move down to Florida and was she practicing?
I believe she did well for herself. I know, because then she moved back. But it's cute. The cute story is her and my mom became really close. And when I say close, at that time, they were pen pals. They wrote letters, and I have a whole box of them, and they're such beautiful letters. And this woman was there as a counselor to families with children born with disabilities or, different diseases or anything. And it's kind of like a grief counselor, but they're also there to talk to parents and tell them what they need to know, how they should approach situations, and blah, blah, blah. And she became more than that. She became a part of our family, and she became a hero to me, to all of us. She was
an advocate for you.
Yes. I mean, and the fact that she was willing to risk her job, and the fact that she wasn't even supposed to be at that surgery, because it's rare. She's not on the surgical team, but it just happened that at that time, this doctor was going to perform, the grandeur of procedures that had never been done before by working and collaborating with other physicians in different hospitals. And so this was going to be broadcasted on the news.
Oh, wow.
And, they were taping it and everything. And so they had asked her to come in to the operating room and watch.
What a divine intervention.
Right?
That she was there.
I mean, had she not been, this man would have walked away and I probably would have passed because he had closed me up and said everything was fine. But really, I had staph infection building up, MRSA. It just wasn't looking good.
Yeah. Right.
Not at the age of 2. I mean, that tiny little cute body of mine.
Yeah. Shout out to Nancy because she's out there. What an angel.
We're going to find her. Maybe that's our next mission.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a job. So do I have any PI agents out there?
Give me some time. I could find anybody.
Right? Ask your dad. There's always a guy.
I got a guy.
I got a guy for everything. Oh, I just want to say thank you first to all who sent in questions. Mm-hmm. You are amazing. And if you have any more, please feel free to locate me on any of my platforms or reach out, email me. And I would love to hear back. I'd love to hear feedback too in regards to what you would like me to talk about in the upcoming future. But secondly, thank you, Jax.
Thanks for having me.
This was so much fun.
This was fun. I feel so professional. You have a whole setup in here. I love it. And I think too, I like to see this side of you, and I think your listeners too will appreciate seeing this side of you.
She's talking about the bloopers.
We got to get some of those. We're going to get some bloopers together.
She obviously knows I'm still learning. So earlier we had figured out that there was some kind of noise coming through. We said, what did we say? That spirit was coming in because Jackie was taking over the mic and talking too much. So.
I know. Just want to sing a song in it or something.
Right. Oh God, don't.
No, I will spare them.
I've already done it before. I was like, oh, we're going to delete that. That was fun.
You played it back?
Oh yeah, totally had to hear myself sing. I was like, what's this like? Oh.
Nope. There's no singing career in my future.
I mean, I'm on TikTok and I had to hear my voice over and over and over again. But now I find joy and comfort and a lot of laughter in it. Before I would cringe. Right. And again, that goes with self-healing is knowing where you're at in your journey. And that's why I love TikTok. It literally is a beautiful timeline.
It is.
Of everything for me.
Well, thank you for sharing your story and opening. I tell you every day, I think you're changing the world. So.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, as long as I can change myself and that gives others hope to change them, I want to share what it really felt like going through it, going through this self-healing journey and living with a facial difference and never identifying that, never connecting to that, never allowing myself to be that person. Because that was never going to change. And as much as I ran from it or denied it, it was always there. And I was basically running from my own problems I could be healing.
Right.
And so that was why I wanted to share the journey is that it is possible no matter what age you're at. And if anything, the younger, the better. I work with teenagers and I always see them running around, being rambunctious. And yes, you should enjoy life for sure. But if you're doing things that are out of alignment with the person that you truly desire to be, then you should ask yourself more questions. And if you're always pointing the finger at somebody else and playing that victim role, that's going to carry on with you for the rest of your life. And you're going to always have those same storylines to live and feed on until you make those decisions to change for yourself. Until you turn some of the finger back at yourself and say, did I choose this? Yes. Right. And this doesn't, I'm not negating the fact that we're put in certain situations that are out of our control. For sure, I wasn't in control of my situation, but I chose to live in that negativity. I chose to hate the man that did this. I chose to blame everything else. I chose to ignore and run from my own pains. I chose to drink the pain away, but then I started saying, okay, well, I chose that.
Took accountability.
That's where I went wrong.
Right.
Not the world. They're going to do their thing. I can't control, but I can control how I feel, how I express myself, how I live my life. And so that's the utmost thing I can tell anyone is just to really dive deep within yourself.
Amen. I think that's a great note to leave on.
All right. With that, I want to thank you guys for your time and attention. And as always, I appreciate everyone here.